I played 44 video games in 2024. Today, I'm going to rank every single one of those games from the worst to the best. My name is James, and I started this channel simply because I love video games. If that sounds like you, please subscribe to my channel so that you can see more videos just like this one. This list will include every game that I finished in 2024. I replayed a lot of my favorite games like Pikmin, Super Mario Sunshine, and Metroid Prime. I caught up on some games that I'd missed like Bioshock, Doom 2016, Gotham Knights, Elden Ring, Hogwarts Legacy, and still tried to keep up with new releases. Everything will be placed somewhere on this list. The only exception is games that I didn't finish. Indiana Jones, Ocarina of Time Replay, Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, Kunitsugami, Kingdom Come Deliverance, and Metroid Prime 3. All of those were games that I've played partially this past year. None of those are going to be on this list. I have all the games here as a numbered list, but I did mostly kind of break them up into tiers as well. And I'll do my best to explain when one tier ends and a new tier starts. But let's just go ahead and get started. Coming in at the very bottom, number 44 is Zelda 4 Swords. This is a short multiplayer Zelda game that had been stranded on the Game Boy for a very long time. It finally came to Nintendo Switch Online as part of the Game Boy Advance collection, and the only version on there has to be played multiplayer, even though a single-player version of the game exists. I played this game in multiplayer with my wife, and honestly, it just wasn't very fun. The reason that this one comes down in at the very bottom is because I was pretty excited about being able to finally check out this game after all of these years, and it just didn't really deliver what I wanted. Number 43 is The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. This one, it's my fault that I didn't really like this one. I played it at times that were probably not great. I would play it after a long day of work when I was kind of tired and I didn't have the attention span to pay attention to the story, which is really the entire game. In addition, the game doesn't really tell you a whole lot of what's going on, so I found myself sitting down to play this game and just not really having a great time with it. And I did end up pushing through the end since it was only a few hours. Ultimately, I didn't really have that positive of a time with it. Number 42, Luigi's Mansion 2 HD on Nintendo Switch. The original Luigi's Mansion on the GameCube is one of my favorite GameCube games. I remember playing that game endlessly as a kid. I never owned Luigi's Mansion 2 on DS, so I was very excited to finally check it out on Switch. The reason this one ends up so low on the list for me is that it was largely just a big disappointment. I thought it was a step backwards from the original GameCube game in almost every single way, and when I was done with it, I wanted to go back and play that first game again. So those bottom three were just games that I didn't really like. The next three are games that I played for YouTube that I like these games, but I think that playing them for YouTube specifically, doing Let's Plays, soured my experience, and that's why this group is so low on the list. 41, Star Wars Rogue Leader. This is a GameCube game. I had never beaten this game as a kid. Actually, if you watch my Let's Plays, you would know that I still have never beaten this game because I rage quit the last level. What really soured this game for me was that I think if I hadn't been playing it for YouTube, I would have abandoned it after probably about 4 or 5 missions, but I made myself keep pressing on, and while I do think it's an okay game for the GameCube, I found myself getting frustrated because I would die and not really know what I died from, or a mission would fail and I'm not really sure why, or I felt like a lot of stuff that was happening was out of my control, and so I'm not sure if it was my inability to understand what was going on in the game, or if the game didn't properly explain a lot of that stuff to me. Number 40, Halo Combat Evolved. This one specifically, it is very important to remember that I am judging this based off of my experience playing this game for Let's Plays on YouTube. Because Halo 1 as a game by itself is awesome. But I feel like what kind of soured the game for me was that I started this Let's Play of Halo 1 because I wanted to just kind of, get a little Halo in me. And I played the first few levels and I had a really great time with it. I got to some of the more difficult and longer levels. And I had already gotten my Halo fix. And I wasn't really looking forward to play it anymore. So the reason this one comes in so low for me is because I once again felt like I had to push myself to get through the game because I was playing it for Let's Plays. Number 39, Mario vs. Donkey Kong on Nintendo Switch. Same story as the last two games, that this is a puzzle game, and I typically like puzzle games. However, what's nice about puzzle games is that if you're stumped by something, you can stop playing it for a little bit and then come back to it later. Your mind will continue working on it while you're away from it. By doing Let's Plays of this game, I was seeing a level and then I had to solve every level for right away. And so it already kind of set me up to not play puzzle games how I would typically play them. And in the later levels, I was doing just terribly at the game. And editing some of these Let's Plays, I would die probably hundreds of times. And editing them ended up being a huge undertaking, and that definitely soured the game for me too. The next four are another set of puzzle games that I'm not really going to talk about them too much just to kind of speed this along, but they are Pic-a-Pix Classic, Pic-a-Pix Classic 2, Pic-a-Pix Pieces, and Pic-a-Pix Color. All of these games I played on PS5, and it's just a pick-cross puzzle game where you just solve these things and make some kind of picture. I enjoyed these games, but I enjoyed them in the context of which I played them, which was something kind of to do on Sundays and during football games while football was playing in the background, so that I would have something to do with my hands and my brain between plays and during commercials. And so by themselves, I don't really think that I would have enjoyed Pic-a-Pix that much, which is what kind of kept them this low on the list for me. So those are numbers 35, 36, 37, and 38. Number 34, Madden NFL 2025. Similar to the last four games that I talked about, my enjoyment from Madden doesn't come from me enjoying the game of Madden and it being a good game, because frankly, I couldn't care less if Madden is a good game or not. However, I play Madden every single year, and I enjoy it every single year, and the reason that I enjoy it is because because I am a huge NFL football fan, and so I play it every single year as part of my preseason ritual. And so part of the reason that I enjoy Madden so much is because I know that it means the real football season is coming. So I don't really know how much I would enjoy Madden by itself. Number 33, Pikmin 2. This is my least favorite of all of the Pikmin games. When I was doing my series replay of Pikmin, I This is the only one that I didn't 100%. I skipped a good chunk of the treasures just because I don't really like the game very much. And the reason that this one ends up above all these other games for me is that I do think it's enjoyable to play, but I don't think the mechanics that they introduce in this game are so enjoyable that make me want to go in and 100% the game. These next 4 are all 2D platformers. Number 32, Super Mario Bros. 2 on the NES. Number 31, Super Mario Bros. On the NES. And then number 30, Super Mario Bros. 3 on the NES. I know that Super Mario Bros. 3 is a lot better than those other 2 games. However, when I played them, I really just kind of blitzed my way through all 3 of them. I think I hurt those games for myself by not taking the time to stop and kind of enjoy the levels. I was really just running through them. I didn't take time to get to know the different levels. If I died, I was quick to use the rewind feature to just go back to a second before I died so that I could just like pretend I didn't die. And so I think it was not a good way to play the games. That being said, I did enjoy getting to the end, the actual end of those games that I don't know if I'd ever actually done that before. But in the future, I would like to revisit those in a more complete capacity. Number 29, New Super Luigi U. It's probably blasphemy putting this above those other 2D Mario games, especially the classic games. But I had a lot of fun with Super Luigi U. I liked that the levels were short, and usually you were given about 100 seconds per level, and they were kind of bite-sized and revolved around one specific mechanic, and I really liked that about them. What does prevent this one from being higher up for me is that New Super Luigi U and New Super Mario Bros. U are very floaty in their controls, and the ground is very slippery, and that makes it worse for me. Number 28, Pikmin. Number 28, Pikmin 1. I love the original Pikmin. I think they have a really fun and clever game with these creatures, and it is a very solid real-time strategy game on a console. They do a really good job of creating a sense of urgency with the limited number of days, and I really enjoy Pikmin. What holds this one back for me is that I know how much better Pikmin controls can be because of Pikmin 3 and Pikmin 4. And the Pikmin, the individual Pikmin creatures in this game are constantly like walking into enemies and walking into water that, like, if you have a blob of Pikmin following you, like, that blob won't like they won't like move out of the way of like hazards or anything. They'll just kind of walk into them. And so that's something that kind of holds down the game for me a little bit too. Number 27, Gotham Knights. This game's not as bad as everyone made it sound. If I'm being honest, I don't really remember much about the story or anything, but I don't remember hating it. And I thought the combat was okay. Definitely not as good as the free flow Arkham combat that we get with Batman. But I thought that the investigations that you did in this game were interesting. And I thought that the way that you could play as 4 different characters was interesting as well. The main thing that holds this one back for me is that a lot of your progression in getting stronger is tied to gear and grinding for materials to be able to craft or buy different types of gear. So you end up just repeating a lot of the same miscellaneous objectives over and over and over again to grind for a lot of these items, which I don't find particularly fun. Number 26, Star Wars Outlaws. This is a bit of a controversial one. I didn't really have a terrible time with this game. The reason this one is so far down the list for me was that once I finished the main story for this game, I dropped it very quickly and never really looked back. I didn't think the combat or the stealth was terrible, but also they didn't really have standout elements to them either. That being said, they have been releasing all kinds of patches for this game and some DLC for this game too that I am actually interested in checking out early next year. But in the meantime, Star Wars Outlaws is just very mid. Number 25, Assassin's Creed Unity. This was a replay of the game for me on PS5. I didn't hate it as much as I did the first time playing it, but if I'm being honest, I don't really remember a ton about it. I remember not hating it as much, which is why it just kind of ends up in the middle of this list for me. I don't remember very much that was good about it either. I don't think that it had a standout story, and I remember thinking that the different parkour system from the other Assassin's Creed games, I felt like they overcomplicated it a little bit, but I would say this one is stuck in the middle of the list, mainly just because it was kind of a forgettable experience. Number 24, Tribreaker, A Sacred Symbols Odyssey. It was tough for me, actually, to put this one this low on the list. What I really liked about this game was the different level variety and how you never knew what the next level was going to bring you as far as mechanics, and it felt like you had control over what was going on in the different levels. What really holds this one back for me as far as this list goes is that I think that the simplicity of the game hurts it in comparison to some of the other games on this list. Number 23, Astro Bot. It was really nice to see a competent 3D platformer come from somebody other than Nintendo. What keeps this one from being higher up on the list for me is that I think it's kind of lacking in level variety. Every single level, you're just walking from one end of the level to the other end of the level and finding bots. And while it's a really great celebration of PlayStation's history, those references and celebration of other games end up outshining Astro Bot himself. Number 22 is Bioshock. I personally did myself a disservice on this one by starting it and then stopping and playing something else and then going back to it and then stopping and playing something else and then going back to it and finishing it. And because of that, I wasn't really able to follow what was going on in the story. I had to watch a story explanation video after I beat the game, to where something that's supposed to be a pretty big reveal in the game didn't land for me at all because I didn't even understand what it meant. And then I watched that video and then it was just like oh, okay. That one I kind of ruined for myself. Number 21, Tales of Kenzera Zhao. This game is great. I had a lot of fun with this game. This was the first Metroidvania that I've played that's not a literal Metroid game. If I remember correctly, I think the combat gave me a little bit of trouble later in the game. But the standout part of this game for me was the art style and the story and the different characters. Number 20, The Legend of Zelda, A Link Between Worlds. This one is only on 3DS, and this one is interesting because it's a Zelda game where you can approach all of the different dungeons in whatever order you want. But I think this game is very good. The thing that holds me back for this one is, while I think all of the dungeons are good, because you can do them in any order, you don't feel like the dungeons get progressively harder as you go. They all just kind of feel like entry-level dungeons. And then when you get to the final boss does feel like a final boss level of a challenge, which feels like a huge jump up in difficulty because you had been plateaued at those entry-level dungeons for so long. This next group of games could really go in any order. It's number 19 all the way up to number 11. And these are all games that I had a lot of fun playing. Some of them I enjoyed because I knew I was going to enjoy them because I replayed them. And then some of them I enjoyed just because they were completely new experiences to me. So these next ones, 19 or 11 through 19, aren't so much as a ranking, but this is more of just like a tier. This would be like the B tier. Number 19, Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. I really loved the first Mario Rabbids game. This one, I got it right when it came out, but it didn't quite grab me the way that the other one did. They changed up the movement a little bit that I was unsure about, and they added some new mechanics that I was unsure about as well. But then earlier this year, once I started to get into this game a little bit and just kind of accept it for what it was, it really grabbed me. And so I think the main thing holding me back for this one is that because they did add some depth, because they did make the movement system and the combat and the customization a little bit deeper, it is a little bit harder to get into and understand. Number 18, Ryse, Son of Rome. I knew pretty much nothing about this game going into it. I knew it was an Xbox One launch game, and I knew that I was able to play it for free on Xbox Game Pass, but that was pretty much all I knew. I really liked the flashy combat, and when you executed a perfect maneuver in this game, you felt so cool, and you felt like you could take down literally anybody. The main thing holding this one back for me is that a lot of the combat is just essentially QuickTime events, which I think is okay since this is a pretty short game, but if it was a longer and more fleshed out game, I think that wouldn't stand. Number 17, Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden. The highlight of this game was the story and the impact that you as the player had on the story. That throughout the whole game, you're choosing the fate of individual characters. It feels like you are really exploring and interacting with this world. Number 16, Metroid Samus Returns. This one's particularly special for me because it is the final 2D Metroid game that I hadn't played. Going into this game, I felt like I really understood what I was doing, and I felt like that made me enjoy the game so much more. Number 15, Pikmin 4. This is the Pikmin game that I think has the best story mode, or like main mission structure. The level design and the Pikmin variety make this game so much fun that you can tackle so many of these levels and many of these bosses from different angles. The main thing holding this one back for me was that once I was done with the main story and kind of wrapping up a lot of the side objectives, there wasn't much to keep me coming back. Number 14, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is probably one of my favorite games of all time, and every single time I played that game, I liked it a little bit more and felt like I understood Cal Kestis a little bit better as a character. I would pick up on stuff that I hadn't picked up on before. Star Wars Jedi Survivor is good, but not great. I like Cal Kestis as a character. I like the direction that they take him and Marin and some of the other characters that we see in this game. I don't really like how this game doesn't revolve around the Empire as much as the first game does. And the main thing keeping it from being a top tier game for me is that playing it again, I didn't feel like I got more out of it the second time. Number 13, Batman Arkham Origins, the long-forgotten Batman Arkham game. It's really cool in this game to get to see the early days of Batman, before he has the reputation as being the world's greatest detective, before he's even met a lot of the villains. He meets a lot of villains in this game for the very first time, a lot of the assassins that are coming after him. And overall, I just find it to be a really fun Batman story, and the main thing holding it back for me is that it is stranded on Xbox 360. You can't purchase it digitally anywhere, so anytime I want to play it, I have to bust out my Xbox One. Number 12, The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. I don't know that I have much to say here. I really like The Last of Us Part 2. I bought it again on PS5 and got the platinum again, and probably the main thing keeping it out of the top tier for me, I guess there's a couple of them. One is that you have to play the game between 1.5 and 2 whole times to be able to get the platinum. Two is that I don't know if they hadn't released the game again on PS5 and let me go and earn all of the trophies again, I don't know that I would have really enjoyed going back to this game again. That I feel like this is the kind of game that once you've seen it, it's kind of done. I do also think that the game is just generally too long and that the story would have been better presented in a different order, but we don't really need to get into all of that right here. Number 11, Far Cry 5 New Game Plus. What made this one special for me was that my wife was playing Far Cry 5 at the same time that I was playing Far Cry 5. She was playing on her PlayStation, I was playing on my Xbox, and it was special to me because I don't really get to talk to hardly anybody in real life about video games. Hence why I made this channel, so I could talk to you about them. But even outside of that, I found the Far Cry 5 story to be very captivating and interesting, and I thought that all of the different endings to the game were insane. And I do think that my experience with this game was boosted a little bit by playing in New Game Plus, because I didn't have to spend the time gathering gear and leveling up and doing all that stuff. I just tried and dropped in there like ready to go. My next three, earlier I said that last group was the B tier. This is going to be the A tier. And this is number 8, number 9, and number 10. All three of these games are old. 2 of them I played on YouTube. All of them I've played multiple times. I wouldn't be surprised if I continue to play each of these games every year and enjoy them. What makes them A tier as opposed to S tier is that I would consider them more of a nostalgia comfort food over anything else. And they are Star Wars Battlefront 2 from 2005, Pokemon Snap on the Nintendo 64, and Portal 1, which I played on Xbox. That only leaves 7 games remaining. These top 7 are the S tier of games. Any one of these games could be my top game of the year. Any one of these could be my top experience of the year. And we're going to go through them one by one, and I'm not just going to list them off like I did the other ones. Number 7, Skyrim. I played this game on PS5, and I got the platinum. This one, I'm going to be real, it's a nostalgia one that it takes me back to high school and to early college. I like the familiarity and the open-endedness of the world and the different quests, and how right from the very beginning, if you want to do the main quest, you can, but if you want to just completely ignore the main quest, you can too. I really feel when I'm playing Skyrim that I can do anything that I want. Number 6, Doom 2016. I don't even know what made me play Doom in the first place. This one just completely took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did. I love the chaotic and fast-paced nature of the game, and the ability to glory kill enemies was awesome. But I also really like that every level has a lot of optional stuff that you can go and find, that if you want to just kind of blitz through and end up giving yourself a more challenging experience, you can too. But then if you want to go through and find all of the upgrades and explore the whole level, you can do that as well. Number 5 is Hogwarts Legacy. I'm not even a huge Harry Potter fan. This game is just fun. I think they did a really great job of simplifying the spells into a combat system that is comprehensible, but also satisfying when you kind of learn how to string your abilities together. I didn't really care for the story of this game, but as somebody who loves a good open world checkbox game, I enjoyed clearing objectives in this game the same way that I would in an Assassin's Creed or Immortals Phoenix Rising or any of those. Number 4, Pikmin 3. Now, it might seem odd that this Pikmin game is so much higher up than the rest of the Pikmin games. And the main reason for that is that Pikmin 3 has a lot of challenge objectives that are not in the main story, that you access them from the menu. And so over the last 2 months or so, during football games and while I'm just hanging out and while I'm listening to podcasts, I'll just pop on Pikmin 3 and just play through a bunch of those levels. And a lot of them are really challenging to get the top scores. And being able to go through the story and have a really great time and collect all the different fruits and see what's going on with Olimar and all that stuff, or jump in and play some of those challenge missions. And there's some easier challenge missions that I can just kind of breeze through pretty easily. And then there's a lot tougher challenge missions that I still have never been able to get top marks on. Not even to mention that there's the bingo battle, which is a 2-player mode that I make my wife play with me sometimes. And that's why Pikmin 3 is so high on the list. Number 3, Super Mario Sunshine. This one really shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. This is one of my favorite games of all time, going back to 2002. This is my favorite platformer of all time, and I don't ever see that changing. What made this game enjoyable for me as somebody who's played it a ton of times is the charm and the level variety and being able to practice a lot more precision platforming and being able to kind of show off my skills in the game really to myself. Number 2, Metroid Prime Remastered. Just like Super Mario Sunshine, Metroid Prime is one of my favorite games. The reason this one ended up so high on the list was that I played it in March for a different project that I was working on. And even as somebody who has played the game before, it felt so new and so fresh, and I just absolutely loved it. But coming in at number 1 is Elden Ring. This might be surprising to you. It's surprising to me. I first tried playing Elden Ring right when it came out, and I was bad at it, and I quit. Something made me go and try it again earlier this year, and I was able to get all the way through and beat the game. Some things that elevated this game for me specifically was that I had a coworker who was really into Elden Ring as well, and he was actually replaying the game at the same time that I was getting back into it. And so us being able to talk about it together, talking to a real human in real life about a game is always going to boost it up the list for me. And on top of that, just the added satisfaction of having given up on Elden Ring before and then being able to come back and win. And that's, I guess, what brings it in at number 1. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. In the comment section, please let me know what your favorite games you played in 2024 were. They don't have to have come out this year. You just have to have played them. Until next time, the best way to keep up with me is on Twitter and on Instagram at James_Solar. And on Blue Sky at jamessolar.bsky.social. Thanks, guys.